But let's see what happens when we shift this to a lateral motion. And till here we worked on wrist motion mainly. Okay, so we think of the upstroke starting from the wrist. So from this part, and we end up in this position, and then we go down. Instead, when we work laterally, we want to start from the elbow. So we want elbow, first thing to be activated, wrist following, and then the whipping motion. Okay, so this is how you develop the strokes, the Moeller technique laterally, starting from the elbow, for slow tempos, of course. Okay, so when we develop the Moeller technique, I often see drummers explaining the Moeller going all the way, doing all these kind of motions. In my opinion, the best way to develop the Moeller is really to throw your arm laterally and keeping the rest relaxed and making sure that we know the starting point. So we know that the elbow is the first thing that's gonna start, that's gonna be activated, followed by the wrist, and then all the rest is just natural. Okay, it's just like if someone pulls our arm in this way and our arm and hand react consequently. Then once we have this first motion, we have to control the rest of the strokes. Very important thing is the fulcrum point, because here now we will land in a French grip position, not in a German grip. And from here we will have to let the stick bounce freely. We don't have to block the stick, if not we will lose all the energy that we did doing this motion to have the stick bouncing. And so it's very important that the fulcrum point doesn't choke the stick, that we're not afraid of losing the stick and choking, but let it bounce freely. Okay, and once we can do this, we will have to play starting with the 4 strokes Moeller, 4 strokes for each motion. So let's see how this would work. So as we can see, the landing stroke, it's in French, and then while we play the strokes, we kind of switch to the German position, so that we can still have the 4 strokes happening without losing control of the stick while we're doing this. And we also have the freedom to move our arm laterally. So once we can do this and we can control the rebound, we can speed the motion up and shift from the bigger muscles to the smaller muscles, as we always do. And so shifting from an elbow motion to a wrist motion. Let's see how this process works. So it becomes more of a rotating wrist motion at a certain speed, and we don't involve the elbow anymore. In this way we can still work on the Moeller motion, but working on smaller muscles we can work at higher speeds, so we can play faster. Okay, so at this point what we want to work on and what we want to fix is the sound that we're making. We don't want to play, if we use this in a blast beat contest, or in a contest where we want a straight sound and not such dynamic sound, we want to have the strokes more or less all as much even as possible, so avoiding the first accent and then having taps afterwards. How can we do this? We can control the first stroke without having it so loud, and then pushing a little bit with our fingers to on the other 3 strokes, so that we will have the first stroke not so loud and the other strokes a little bit louder, so it kind of balances all the strokes. So the difference between the strokes is way less. So then when we apply this and we put it together with right and left hand alternated, this is what will happen. Okay, so more or less always the same sound, even though you still have that kind of feeling, but it's very hard to take that off. And to be honest, when you then put all the rest of the drums on top of this and you're not just playing on the pad, you won't hear it so much. So it's still a good technique. I used to use it some years ago, and I still use it when I feel like I'm tired, my body is not 100%. Maybe you didn't sleep too much the night before, you're touring, you've been around for several weeks, and you can feel your body is tired. This is a great technique that it can really help that night. So it's always good to have it, because the more tools you have to play and to use in your playing, the better it is, the more of a complete drummer you are.